But yeah, I mean, with one of the family, was that written pre-lockdown or during lockdown, or when did you start writing that?
I think I started writing it before lockdown.
Yeah.
Lawrence, I did. I say I think I did. Like I can't remember, but I kind of do remember, because lockdown's been such a big splurge in people's lives. It's kind of pre-lockdown is like, it's like before the birth of Christ or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, when was what? That was going, what? Yeah. Or before K2, 75 million years ago when the dinosaurs were wiped out. Is it like before that and after that? It's one of those kind of. I think I started about 6 months before. Took a long time.
Mm-hmm.
With all the other stuff going on, a lot of thinking, a lot of considerations. And I think actually it might have been more than 6 months, but it evolved, because initially I thought, all right, but I was fascinated with dogs and doing stuff about dogs. And I wanted to do stuff about my dog, Maxwell, and how he's really helped me. Then I thought, I can't really do a book about how a dog helped me without going into why he needed to help me and what I needed help for. Yeah. So I went kind of from the superficial and gradually dived down. And then I got this brilliant editor. Once we got a deal, we kind of got the shape of it. And I got this brilliant editor who we talked and talked and talked, and she saw the narrative and she'd say, go away and write about that, and go away and write about that. And I realized I had to write about all these unresolved things. And once I decided to write about mental health and my diagnosis as bipolar and my breakdown, everything else just tumbled in after that, because I kind of looked to my adoption and my birth mother and my amazing family and reconciling stuff and trying to make sense of stuff. And so everything else kind of followed from that. And, Gillian said, well, you write about that, and then you should think about that. And so she kind of guided me through it. And I'd write a chapter and she'd say, yeah, after the first couple of chapters, she said, that's it. That's the kind of feel and intensity and honesty you need. Mm-hmm. So she kept me on track. And it's like sending your essay into a teacher you really like. And then when you get like top marks for a chapter, beyond, maybe start the chapter with that bit, and then with the paragraph and go away and think of that. And it's a fantastic process. And you kind of want to please them.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. So, when it comes back and there's no red pen, that's the best feeling. Or when it comes back and she says, oh, that insight you had there on that phrase there, I just love that. And I love that. And you feel really good. But it's part of the whole kind of psychological process. So, I didn't want to, when I was considering speaking about my breakdown and bipolar, I thought about it for some time, and I didn't really want to, because I was wary of becoming kind of Mr. Bipolar. I've got type 2. It's not the most severe manifestation of it, but I don't want to become Mr. Go-To type 2, because there's, and so it was a big decision to make. But then I thought the whole picture fits in, and it's not the defining part of the book. But it's in there, and I think it's sold really well, but more than that, people have responded amazingly, saying, well, that's just like my life, being adopted or having that mental health issue or being helped by my dog, or that appreciation of my family, that sense of not belonging, that sense of belonging, that sense of identity missing. And if one person, and it's been a few, but if one person says that's really, really relatable, that's my life, that's amazing feeling. Yeah. You must get that as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When you get letters back from kids and stuff, that's always me. They always say my favorite part is, or and it's quite simple stuff, but it's lovely just to have that, to know that what you're writing has got someone that's into it. Just from your brain, this story has come out, and you just uttered this stuff onto paper. I mean, yours is a real story, but yeah, I mean, it is a really nice having that feedback. I mean, yeah, did you find it quite therapeutic doing it?
Yeah,
I did.
just thinking about, you know, adoption. And I mean, part of the narrative was why I sort of froze out my birth mother when I met her, and why that relationship didn't really work, and thinking it was my fault all the time, and why I didn't bond with her, and then realizing the reasons for the things she'd done, and why she'd done them, why she had to have us, because she had another baby within 18 months of me, 18 months before me, in Edinburgh. She came from Dublin. Why she was such a closed book, and just understanding that. And there were clues which I explored and which opened my eyes. So that's part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you met your birth mother, do you think that was something that was inevitable that you really had to do? You really needed to find her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason, I remember the turning point, and I write about this in the book, when I was at university. I mean, it's a long story and it ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Your kind of sense of identity and what the birth family means to you, or the birth, so was the birth mother. I think you would psychologically, you always return to the womb. And I mean, through my life, I always had this mystery, this half mystery, but this narrative that my mum had given me about this brave, generous, professional woman who couldn't look after me. And you kind of idealize it in your own mind. And then, of course, you rail against it when you're a teenager. Then you rail against your parents as well. So on the one hand, you're saying, she gave me, she rejected me. On the other hand, you're saying, I'm not even your real child anyway. And you do those appalling things that 16-year-olds do, and 16-year-olds say to your parents.
Right.
Then you're in denial. Then you think, maybe one day I will. But it's just so big. It's a very big thing. It's a massive thing to think about meeting the person who gave birth to you. And I don't think it's something that certainly I, as a 16-year-old, could really handle. Went to university, started to think about it a little bit more. I suppose being away from home in a more independent situation. And the real spark for it, I remember, was I'd had 80 magic mushrooms and a tab of acid. And I was at a kind of party. It was a kind of party. It wasn't sort of there weren't cocktails and nibbles.
Yeah.
And I was like completely tripped out at uni. And it was a John Lennon, Strawberry Fields Forever. It's getting hard to be someone, but it all works out.
Right.
Which is how I felt in life anyway, and how he felt in life on that record was expressed. And that strange thing you have when you're, on hallucinogenic drugs, which is, it seemed to be the most profound thing I'd ever heard in my life. And even the light of day, it's pretty bloody good. And I remember that was a particular moment that I thought, yes, I will do this one day. I will find her one day. Then I put it away for a few years. Then when I was in a really unhappy relationship, I thought that might be the cure-all. That might be the, what's the word I'm looking for? This isn't the word I'm looking for, but it's the word that'll do. That might be the answer. Oh God, what is the word I'm looking for? You know where you can't find a word. And as a writer, you must know this. And it's the most frustrating thing. And you're thinking about the rest. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
Do you ever get that? What do you do? How do you solve that?
I just try, I know the simple word for it. So I'm like, or a simpler word for it. I'm trying to say. Yeah. And I'm like, and I'm Googling it. So I'm like, other words than answer, like, different definitions.
Solution.
Of answers. Yeah. Something like that.
Cure-all. It's not there. It's not. I'm going to spend the rest of our conversation thinking, what's that bloody word? Is it an age thing?
I hope not.
Yeah. I hope not. Never mind. So that was it. And when I was 29, I went over to Dublin, traced her, pretty easy, private detective. I'd done a talk show about private detectives. And because I used to do this debate show on a Friday night on Central Television called Central Weekend Live. And it was 3 debates, current affairs debates, issues, arguments, just trying to get people to have a bloody good row on the telly. And it was an audience debate show. And we were doing one on private detectives. So I did it, and there was this big private detective, ex-cop, kind of 70s, you know, Life on Mars. Was that the name of that 70s show?
Yeah.
Oh God, I remember that. And he was like, you know, Sweeney. And I said, bye. I went up to him afterwards. I mean, if I wanted to trace my birth mother, how long would it take? He said, you got a name? Did I have a name? Yeah, I did, because my mum had furnished me with all the details. My adopted mum, around my real mum. And so I said, hey, will it be possible to trace? Yeah. And he said, yeah, not a problem. I'm going to say, not a problem. He had a crab claw in his mouth and he was glugging a glass of red wine because it was in the green room at Central Television in Broad Street in Birmingham. And I said, well, how long would it take? Well, a week max, not a problem. And this was back in 1989. I remember he said, we're all numbers on computers, so I can find her quite easily. What a visionary. So I did, and I got in touch and eventually went over to meet her.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you met her, it was, I mean, I guess after you met her, how did you, was it, I suppose, closure in a way?
No, it was open-ja.
Okay.
Closure. This is when we need our antonyms.
I know.
Synonyms and antonyms.
Because
America was a closure. It's closure is an American term, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no equivalent, is there? There's no absolute equivalent opposite. Yeah. I'm bowing to your knowledge as a brilliant writer. Closure. Anti-closure.
Anti-closure.
Disclosure.
The opposite of closure.
The opposite of closure, which is, whoop, that's the end of it. We've sorted that. We've put that in a box. That's great. End of. Move on. No, it was kind of stirring up all sorts of stuff. My ongoing relationship with her was very, very difficult because she spoke in a kind of white noise of nothingness and trivia. And you wanted analysis. You wanted answers. You wanted to ask why, when, where, and what. And she was just all about, oh, and I got the number 48 bus, and I saw my friend Heather, and she came around, and then we did that, and I like, and of course, she was bipolar as well, which I discovered later on, but she'd ring at, 11 o'clock at night or whatever, or always at the wrong time, wanting a long, long conversation. So I ducked out. And then she sent letters, long, indecipherable hieroglyphical letters, and some of them I did and I never opened. And when I was talking to Gillian about stuff, I mentioned that. I said, I've got these letters that I've never opened. And she said, what, you've never opened these letters? I said, no. And it was really difficult. And she had when I next spoke to her, she said, no, I think it would be really interesting to explore that, given everything you've told me and everything you've been able to express. That here we are, 89, 99, 109, 90, 30 years on. Would you be willing to open them and read them and write about that? Because that could be closure, and that could be something that would be very useful for you and for others to try and understand and to understand what she went through. So I did, and I poured myself I must have drank half a bottle of whiskey, and Maxwell was by my side, my dog, and I opened them and read them all one night. It was an extraordinary night. And there were things in there that led me to understand her more between the lines,
Yeah.
And one of the first things, and when I was reading the letters that night, one of the first things that she ever said to me, there was two things of note which I lingered on. One of them was one of the first things she said to me was, and she was in a chaotic state, she was 2 hours late because she was so nervous about it, she'd had to take a sleeping pill. And one of the things she said to me was, the first thing just apart from, oh, hello, it was late, oh, it was late, oh, let's go, was, do you like dogs? And I thought, at the time, I didn't really process it properly. And I've thought about it later on. And now, of course, I see it it's a brilliant question. It's like a litmus test of empathy, because dogs, all animals, we see beyond ourselves. We understand the bigger picture of life. And through dogs that stand at the gates of the door into the wild, they're kind of halfway there, but they're not, but they're domesticated, but they're more into the wild. They're closer to that than we are. And they kind of help us see into the forest. And they help us see into the forest in that kind of metaphorical way, but also they help us to see into the forest of ourselves, the forest where we came from and the forest that we're in right now. And they help us in that sense. They guide us through that forest. They take us to that forest and they guide us through that forest.
Yeah.
So, and I don't entirely, this is very bigoted, but I don't entirely trust people who, quote, don't like animals. I think there's something myopic. I'm amazed I remember that one. I was thinking shots. Myopia. About just, emotionally stunted, solipsistic, self-centered, self-serving. And the other thing was, she mentioned this poem out of nowhere. And it was all what I said to you earlier on. I said, I got the number 48 bus. And we did that. And I like Samuel's, and I like doing that. My first one, we got the bus, then let's have like sheltered housing's nice. No, it's nice now. And then she said, do you like poetry? And I said, yeah. And she said, I like Yeats. And there's a poem, my favorite poem is The Wild Swans at Cool. And I sort of put it away in my mind. I thought it was just part of the meandering mind of my birth mother. Stuff came into her head and she said it. Stuff came into her head and she said it. Mm-hmm. And when I was sitting on the sofa having that glass of whiskey and reading her letters, I thought The Wild Swans are cool, and I read it. I Googled it and read it, and it's a beautiful poem, but I read what was behind it, and it's about 59 swans. 59. And swans, of course, are in pairs, and one of the swans was missing. One of the swans was flown. One of the swans was gone. That was an amazing moment when that kind of clicked in.
Yeah, that must be an amazing feeling reading that back. I mean, how, like, obviously we've got to go back to the love of dogs, I suppose. Like, you, even as a child, you had Candy, right? Like, you had the Candy dog, and I mean, you were like a dog lover from, more or less your whole life, right? Like, because it sounds like Candy was a huge part of your childhood.
Before that, even, because Stella, that's the other thing Stella told me when she said, do you like dogs? And later she returned to the theme amidst all the white noise of nothingness, and also my pain. Because the minute I met her, I thought, should I be here? Should I not be with my mum and dad? Am I being incredibly disloyal doing this? Then I felt disloyal to her. Then I felt disloyal to my mum and dad. Then I felt disloyal. And you're in this kind of maelstrom.
Yeah.
It's a lifelong maelstrom. And she said there was a little dog called Toby when she was in the boarding house. This was the other thing she said, that there's a little dog called Toby, which in the boarding house when she came over to Edinburgh, and we were together for 9 days, and Toby took to guarding me when I was in the bed, and even jumping up on the bed and looking after me. And when I had my meltdown and I managed to get a psychiatrist to help me out and to help me through and to diagnose me, I said to him, this dog Toby earlier on, would that mean it? He said, oh yeah, absolutely. Imprint from the earliest stage. So when I got at 3 months old, out of 9 days, I'll have Stella, and 3 months old, out of the nursery place where babies were looked after, lying there in rows and rows and rows of cots. And when I got home, and then when Candy arrived as a puppy, I think for my sister, because we didn't want her nose to be out of joint, I think that was kind of, oh yeah, a dog, in my little unconscious mind or subconscious mind, hey, I know that it's a dog. And then me and him were inseparable. We ate, didn't eat the same things, but we sniffed everything, and everyone came in the house, we sniffed them.
Yeah, I love that quote in your book where you talk about visitors coming round and you had to sort of both greet them as, you know, on all fours.
Sniffing their parts sometimes, which wasn't
yes.
great. And yeah, so you know, we were inseparable, and that was the most most profound relationship of my childhood.
Yeah, no, I think with dogs, like, I can't think of, like, if someone said you can create something, I don't think I could create anything better than a dog. I don't think you can top a dog. Like, how, you know, I couldn't create anything better that's just completely loyal, you know, completely, you know. Could you top a dog? Like, yeah, well, maybe you can make the dog talk. Wouldn't that be great? But then, would you want your dog to talk? You know, that's the third glass of wine you're having, Lawrence. So maybe you shouldn't put that away. So yeah, you know, I don't think you can top a dog.
No, they're amazing. And my point is that, you know, wolves, I think they share a common ancestor with the Eurasian wolf, and that's amazing. Just in, you know, I don't know how long it is. Is it maybe 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 years? Incredible.
Yeah. And so, what role has Maxwell had for you? Like, I guess not only just with lockdown this last year, this COVID, but your own personal sort of mental health battles as well.
Well, when I broke down, everything got on top of me. I wanted to save every single animal in the world. And I've been kind of on the front line, having meetings, going to Parliament, demonstrations, speaking at demonstrations. I'd sit for hours and hours and hours on end, watching stuff on YouTube and watching other stuff, just in despair, just spiraling into the pits of despair. It became an obsession and a mania, a noble thing, but it just took me over. And then eventually it knocked me over, and I was walking down Euston Road after working at Broadcasting House, and I was on my way to Manchester, and I got to the bit of grass outside, which is now the taxi rank, and I was all the way down from Broadcasting House. I was like, felt kind of disorientated and drunk on sadness. And then I collapsed on the ground and started weeping, you know, just uncontrollably. I mean, I always, you know, had the ups and downs, but that was a point. And I just thought, what is the point? What is the point? So I picked up my phone, which had fallen out, and I rang Tina, and then she said, come home. She said, come home to me, come home to the girls, and come home to Maxwell, and we'll sort this out. So I thought, yes, because the thing about coming home to Maxwell was I didn't have to explain, like you don't have to explain about that third glass of wine. I didn't have to articulate and kind of find words and put them together. So, because the human instinct is to say, what can I do for you? How are you feeling? What can I get you? Are you okay? What do you want to do? And you don't want to answer any of that stuff. You're beyond language because you're beyond despair. So you're beyond that sort of communication. You just don't want to, it's too, can't do it. But with him, you don't have to do it. He just knows. And I lay on the bed, and I had that little tinkle of his collar. And he came up and he jumped on the bed and he put his head on my chest and his leg just below it. And I felt this surge of warmth and of love. And I know that he knew. It was incredible. And it's actually, it's not Disney, actually, it's Darwin, because they have to know, they can detect one molecule in a swimming pool. Their olfactory senses are incredible. And those senses involve smelling hormones and pheromones and knowing how every other pack member is, because that's a necessity for the good and fully functioning of the pack. So he loves me. We know that's a scientific fact, because that's we get the same endorphin rush and the same chemicals when we connect as dogs do with each other. But he knew how I was feeling, and he wanted to help me.
Yeah.
And he did help me.
Yeah. And how old is Maxwell now? Is he?
Nearly 13.
Nearly 13. Wow. So yeah, he's you've had him in your life for quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing on my podcast, one of the podcasts, this is probably out before it goes out, I'm doing something on old dogs. And I did, when was that? I did, no, that's not it. I took a, when something said, I probably won't find it. No, I took a recording of him snoring like an old dog, and it's a beautiful thing. They have kind of serenity and wisdom and comfort in their own skin, old dogs, and he's great. He doesn't want to really. Occasionally, when we're walking, he forgets he's an old dog, and he'll chase a ball a couple of times that has been thrown from another dog, and then he thinks, "Oh, what the hell? What did I do that for?" And he sleeps the rest of the day. But he just wants to sniff everything, and to stop him, I've been reading about this a lot. The sniff walk is very important to pull him away from a particular sniff where he might have been annoyingly for 3 or 4 minutes, and then moving a yard further on, and then you've just got to go with it, because it is like dragging a scholar away from the British Museum. All that information that's going in is incredible. And you said earlier on, Lawrence, what is it about dogs? What would it be like if dogs could speak? Well, you can reverse that. And I guess you could say, would it be like if we had that olfactory sense and could smell what they smell? And the thing is, they don't have the massive frontal lobe to process it in the same way that they can process it to deal with it. They can deal with it the way they are, because evolution's a trade-off. But to have our level of self-awareness, and to not have had that experience, and to all of a sudden be able to smell like a dog, we'd go mad, wouldn't we?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We'd be like, what? Oh, what? What's that? What's that? Oh, you know, it would be like craziness, wouldn't it? Incredible. And you know, I don't think we'd handle it. And so he said, stop me being a dog. Don't want to be a dog anymore. I can't handle. Oh, goodness me, that's better. I can't smell all that stuff. Yeah. That
sniffing and smell sense is incredible. Just they could smell things from just, you know, walking Robin, and you know, you could see nothing, and suddenly he could sense something. I've not going to clock yet for another minute or two, and it's like a pheasant or something that's just died, but he's sussed that out way beforehand. It's incredible the amount what they can sense.
It is. I mean, medical detection dogs predicting, you know, diabetic attacks. Is that the right word? Attack. Diabetic incidences and cancer.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that is
incredible.
Yeah, I do as well. You see these. It's amazing what the guide dogs do. Even some of even schools I've been into, they've had like reading dogs and stuff for kids that aren't confident readers, or they feel like they're, you know, more literate in their class, and they haven't got the confidence to speak loudly or read out in class or with their kids in their class, or with teachers and stuff. So there's a corner where some schools have a reading dog, and obviously the dog's he's not going to judge the kid that's trying to read and spell out words and stuff. He's just there to listen, and he's just, you know, the dog's just there chilled. And this kid that's really struggling with his readings got the confidence to try and read these stories and books to the dog. I mean, that's a really beautiful thing some of the schools I've been to do. Yeah,
it's lovely. It makes complete sense.
Yeah. No judgment, is there? No judgment.
No judgment. and also just that touch, that warmth, that touch of another being.
Yeah. I mean, in your book, I really enjoyed, you talking about your relationship with your granddad as well. It sounds like you were really close with him, because he just, like you said, you're adopted and everything, but like he just accepted you as part of the family, right?
Well, everyone accepted me as part of the family, but you always, I had an amazing mum and dad, and I was, special and loved as incredibly loved. To say embraced is like they did me a favor. It's just like they were incredible parents, just magical. But I always knew that they knew, and everyone I knew that they knew. It was in my mind that everyone knew, and their friends knew, and stuff like that. And every time I thought about the fact that they knew, I felt kind of inauthentic. And I write about the 10th birthday party, that the cake came in and everyone sang happy birthday, and I burst into tears because I thought, I don't deserve this. I'm not worth it, because I was meant to be someone else. But Grandpa was sting of a shit, because all he wanted to do, he probably had forgotten. He was, something incredibly, and he was really entertaining. He used to do funny things with his false teeth to make funny, and did funny voices and gurning and stuff like that. And he was a gambler. I think he'd been a problem gambler and had lost a lot of money for the family back. And he was doing a bet every day. And he was just incredibly self-centered. And I just love that about him, because just all he wanted to do was make me laugh. It sounds strange, but I mean, he'd had a really interesting life. And one of the things that I will never forget, and what I mean is by this, it was all, he would never have analyzed the fact that I was adopted. As far as he was concerned, I was just a child in the family, one of the family, and he wouldn't have even thought about it. And I didn't think about him thinking about it. That's the thing. I didn't consider that he ever considered it. And I really thought that it was like we were at ground zero. It was just that. And I used to like, being with him, and he'd tell stories. And he was on the Somme. He fought on the Somme with the Lancashire artillery, I think.
Okay.
And I mean, I don't talk about this in the book, but I saw an advert in the Radio Times when I was about, it was 1976. It must have been 76, because it was about the 60th anniversary of the Somme. And I saw this thing in the Radio Times saying, does anyone have any memories of the Somme, who was on the Somme? Because of that, the people were, still relatively young. And he was like 80 or something. And I got him to write in. So he wrote a long letter, a description of what it was like. And he got a letter back with a check for, I don't know, 5 shillings or something. No, I mean shillings then, I think we'd had it, £5 or something like that. A couple of groats and a couple of guineas. And they were going to use one of his quotes for groats. And then we watched the documentary, and he had his chair right up. He was very elderly by that stage. He must have been maybe 88. And he had his chair right up at the television. And then this intriguing man, who was a law unto himself, and he was sitting just close to the television. And then his quote came up about, it was something like, there'd been all that carnage the day before, and we'd been in hell. And then the next morning, as the sun came up, the birds were singing, and it was the most beautiful morning. And it just seemed so strange, the contrast. He said it much better than me, but that was what he was talking about, just to paraphrase it. And it was just like, right, 3 yards, maybe 2 yards from the television, in his chair, just crying, just looking at it, crying.
Wow. That's a very powerful image,
Yeah. He also spoke about the fact that he was in he was in a bivouac one night by a French monastery. And he heard, it's funny, Grandpa's stories, and he heard this. And it was about 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock French time, or 5 o'clock UK time. The army always kept by UK time wherever they were on the continent. And he had this marching, and he looked out the bivouac and saw 3 soldiers and a chap in the middle who was staggering like that as they were a little soldier that he was marching with them. And he'd seen that little soldier before, the day before. And he'd gone past the guardhouse, and that little soldier had said, "Yeah, I've got a fag, mate. Have you got a fag, mate?" And he went, "Yeah, yeah." And Grandpa gave him his packet. And he said to the sergeant, "What's up?" And the sergeant said, "Oh, he's for it tomorrow. He was found cowering 3 or 4 miles back in a ditch, away from the front line." And then Grandpa saw him being marched, and then he went round the side of the cemetery, and then so he spoke about that a lot. And I found out the guy's name, Private Chase, and I phoned the expert of experts. I got in touch with the expert of experts on First World War executions. And is that noise all right? It's noise in the background.
No, sorry.
First World War executions, who said that there was 2 accounts of that. There was Grandpa's accounts, and there was an account from a schoolboy who'd been on the other side of the monastery wall. And basically, that's all right, it's gone. The other side of the monastery wall. And he said it was a really valuable account. And I just thought, oh, Grandpa would be so pleased. This is a really valuable account of this. And he was really excited that I wish I'd got his book up there, sorry. He was really excited, this expert on First World War execution. So, it's like, oh, this is fantastic. This is amazing. Because there's another account. Oh, this fills in, this is Private Chase. That particular, that was great. And I just thought Grandpa'd be so proud. That's amazing. And terrible. I tried to trace Chase, but apparently he was the last. His parents had been in domestic service, but we did find a letter eventually from him to his mum, which is utterly heartbreaking. I didn't do anything wrong, Mum. I swear I didn't do anything wrong. I was just scared. I was, scared of the guns, and I promise I just, that was
so
terrible. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
How old would he have been?
18
years old.
17, 18.
Wow.
It's disgraceful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah. It's another world, I guess, then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of Grandpa.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my granddad, he never knew he was adopted. He never knew his parents. He was just left on the doorstep when he was a child. But he never really spoke about it to me. Obviously, he spoke about it to his mum and stuff. But he was happy as he didn't have like adopted parents. He was just an orphanage and and a family kind of was with him as a bit older. But then he went into the army, so yeah, he didn't really have a family background. But he was he just loved life really, and just enjoyed. He just made it. Us were his immediate family, and it's interesting learning people's stories.
He was a foundling. He was left on the doorstep.
Yeah, left on the doorstep. Mm-hmm. He doesn't talk about too much to me. He was obviously when he talks to my mum more about it, but he was just left on the doorstep of an orphanage. Yeah.
Was he left to be found? You don't know.
I don't know all the
because with foundlings, if they're left to be found, that makes a hell of a difference. Wrapped up, warm, left, in an obvious place that people would find them. Because we do this program, Born Without Trace, which is part of the Long Lost Family programs that I do, which is about foundlings. And of course, now, if your grandfather is gone, yeah,
if
you're around now, what we could do, and which is what we do, which is transform people's lives, because everyone is fantastically obsessed with family history. So everyone's putting their DNA onto these websites. Millions of people have put their DNA onto these websites. And so if we to take your grandpa's DNA, in fact, we could take, your parents' DNA, is in maternal or paternal.
It's my mum, yeah. So it's my,
you take your mum's DNA, put it on their website, and the brilliant team who work on it could come back with a third cousin.
Oh, great! Yeah. Well, I'll have to let her know. That should be
a third cousin. Is quite a long way away, but a third cousin, if you think about where it happened, then you do the detective work, you can very often narrow it down to a few potentials and cousins and a few roots and stuff like that. So if we were around, that's how we do it for people. And if you get a breakthrough, and it's amazing how far you can get with a bit of DNA, you can map a picture and then use geographical clues and other clues. It's just phenomenal. And so your grandpa's generation, no chance of ever knowing anything, ever having a blank sheet of paper. But now there is hope. And some of the stories, some of the people's lives that we've been able to transform, it's just been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I put my DNA in as part of just for the hell of it, they put my DNA in. And I got my birth sister, who was my birth mother Stella's other child. So we had different fathers. I got this phone call from him one day saying, there's a close match. There's a close match. There's a close match. We find another close match on the DNA. I said, that's me. So, how disappointing. I said, they put mine in. Yeah. As I said, it's either an uncle or a sibling.
You say you've been able to film some Long Lost Family this year. I mean, how long's that been going on? Since 2009, was it? Yeah, around that time. Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah. I think you know what? I think that's fresh in my head because you mentioned it in your Audible. I feel like that's where it's come from. But yeah,
do you do your Audibles?
Yeah, well, some of them, a couple of my books have. I don't do them, but
don't you?
No, I'm glad, it was nice that you do them though, because it was a lot more personal, isn't it? Yeah, especially with a book like that.
I've not heard it. It's all right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah, it was. Yeah. When I played it and I realised it was you talking, I was just like, that's quite nice to know it's you.
Yeah, but it was kind of tricky to do. It took a long time. Can you imagine reading a book? But some of the stuff, going over it again and reading it out loud. That's the thing. When you read stuff out loud, when you've done a book which has got lots of sad things in it and happy things in it, and laughs too. But part of you sort of going, "Oh, that's quite good," and the other part, it's awful that you're thinking, "Oh yeah," and the other part of you is like, on the brink because you're going through it all again.
Yeah.
But who does your Audibles then? You get
we have the publisher.
Actor.
Usually an actor voice. Actor, we have a couple of people. The publishers sort of have it in-house, people they're linked to and things like that. Yeah, but no, I think if I was ever going to write like a personal book, I'd give it a go. Now I'm a bit more confident with the podcasting. It's a different world, writing and talking. People can hear what I'm saying. I don't have to, I can't edit to this. But I guess you can in some ways. But anyway, I guess with Long Lost Family, I mean, is it always? You mean, like I say, you've done it for over 10 years now? Is it still really, really special each case? Like, it's still overwhelming for you?
Overwhelming.
Yeah.
I can't believe it, because there's the privilege. I'm so proud of it, but the privilege of what the team do, the privilege of actually being with somebody and sharing the most emotionally intimate hour, perhaps, of their life so far, when you're telling them all that stuff. Davina, when she goes to the relative to say, "We found your brother, we found your son, we found your father, we found your sister, we found your mother." I mean, you're in this kind of bubble when you're doing it as well. When you're talking to someone And the cameras are there at a very respectful distance. And the minute you start talking, you forget the cameras are there. And you're in a kind of magical bubble of sharing that emotional intimacy with each other. Because a lot of the stuff that people say is what I feel. And sometimes I will help them and say stuff when they say that's how I feel, because there's a real commonality in that sense of belonging or not, or adoption. And then when you finish talking, there's a point where you kind of go maybe an hour later, and it might make 7-8 minutes screen time. There's a point where you think, yeah, and you just move slightly in your chair, and you go, oh, maybe we should have a break, go outside, get some air. And then the whole atmosphere changes, and then you think, oh, there's 2 cameras there, and the remote camera, and then Sally, the producer's there on the ground as well, looking at notes. And so it's amazing. And then I always think, oh, I'll do some work on the way home, but I can't. So I've got the laptop, the best intentions, and read up. I remember coming back from one, and we had a big Labour, it was during the last election, and we had a big Labour person, I can't remember who it was, might have been, it wasn't Corbyn, might have been McDonnell. And so I had to read the Labour manifesto on the way back. I just couldn't get past the first line. This is not a political comment. I just couldn't get past the first line because I had all that other stuff in my head. And so you can't, I mean, I said, I'll do this and I'll do that. I just, you just, because it's so overwhelming. You've been talking about somebody's life like that, and you've changed somebody's life. I haven't, but it has changed somebody's life. It's incredible. And when they asked me one day, when you look back at all the things you've done, that is front and center, because I can't say job. It's not a job. And I can't say I'm a presenter of it, because I don't present. We kind of, and I've said this to Davina before, we've discussed this, we kind of exist within it. To put it crassly, we're like Mary Poppins. We fly in and then we fly out. And that's another interesting thing, because you form a relationship with people. And so when we're on a reunion, for example, I might be with the brother, sake of argument. She might be with the mother, the son, the mother, the brother, the sister. And then we've got such a close relationship, and I'm about to say goodbye to them. And they say, and Davina says this same thing happens with her. And they say, you can be around. Can we have a drink afterwards? We see you afterwards. Will you be there when we're having a drink this evening after the reunion? It's fine, just no, but yes, fine. And then they go in, of course, then we forget about us, because we are literally Mary Poppins. we fly off into the distance, and that's it. Obviously, we keep in touch with people, but everything else is so big and overwhelming and important that the mere presence of ourselves becomes an utter irrelevance. And that's kind of fantastic, because it shows, what has happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess with the show now, have you just finished a series of it, or are you currently doing it at the minute?
We're in the middle of a series 12, I think, at the moment. Of course, there's a bit less hugging.
Yeah,
we got a story I can't say actually, just in case, but it was a story in the most fantastic place on the other side of the world, a place that I've never been. And if it had been mentioned to me that you have to go there to do this, I would have thought, oh my God, I'm actually going to go there. I'm actually going to see that. And bear in mind, I've been to all over the world, with Colombia and Ecuador and like places you'd never go, like New Mexico, and Kentucky. Why would you go to these places? All over New Zealand and Australia. And I know a lot of people say, oh, flying. He says, yeah, we're a carbon neutral program. And, in television terms, doesn't happen very often. So like Canada, all over Europe, obviously, and, incredible places. And this was a place. Oh my God. Oh, maybe, when's this go out?
Probably about 6 weeks or so. Yeah.
I'll be all right then.
Yeah.
I think. Will it? Montana.
Nice. Wow.
But I'm not going. It's a Zoom.
Oh.
You see, that's the thing.
Yeah,
back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
That would have been wow. But now, of course, it's
all via, yeah. Everything's done Zoom. Everything's Zoom.
Can you imagine going there?
Yeah, that'd be incredible.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Mountains. It's like the beginning of that. Dun, da, da, dum, dun, da, 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 dum, da, da, dum, da, da, dum,
yes,
da, da,
yeah.
da, 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 dum, da, da. That's with that mountain at the beginning of the films.
Yeah.
And you I've always seen that mountain and thought, oh, that's a mountain.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
It is. It is. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to the new series. I guess, is there any more things you intend to write about, or working on any new books in the future?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What about you? Are you writing at the moment?
Yeah, writing a few things at the minute. A couple kids books, and I'm writing about mental health as well, actually, because I've dealt with depression, and I think it's important for men to speak out about it, because we still have this. Although it's better to talk about, I still think I'm 31 years old. Sadly, I've known 5 people that took their own lives, some closer than others. One was a girl that had been dealt with her mental health for a long time. She was quite outspoken about it. But all the 4 guys I know that took their own life just happened like that. No warning, no signs, just what? They're gone? Like, where did that what? And I think the most helpful thing for me is when I was really having that really bad spell of depression was keeping it. I always say it's like the genie in Aladdin, right? Because you're kind of stuck in that lamp and you're just longing for someone to just let it out, Once you're out and you can kind of talk and be free and just be open about it, I find that's a huge help. And I found that better than any kind of medication, whatever doctor. That's all great as well. But like just being able to talk about to another guy and just say like, this is how I'm feeling at the minute, and not to be judged and stuff. And I think it's huge. So yeah, I'm working on something like that, and a couple of children's books as well.
Because when I was saying earlier on, but it's really difficult to put the words together and to articulate it.
Yeah, and
it can be quite painful to do that. However much you love the person, unless the person kind of completely understands, because like you understood what I said earlier on when I said that then. Yeah, and how that connection. And it kind of tied in with what you were saying about kids and dogs giving kids that confidence because they're not judging them to read and to do stuff because of the presence of this wonderful, beautiful animal. And that all ties in with helping people with mental health as well. I think, as I said earlier on, a connection to an animal is a connection to ourselves because we are but an animal at the end of the day. And at the beginning of our time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for speaking out about it because I know it's not easy, and there's some things like you say, you don't want to be labelled that guy with the mental health, like that. Like Stephen Fry's spoken about it as well. But it's not. It's a difficult thing. People say, "What's bravery?" I what's bravery in being strong, and people kind of identify men as strong is that kind of toxic masculinity, isn't it, that men have to be. But I think a really bravery and strong for men right now is to talk about how they're feeling, because I think it's about time we did that.
It is.
Yeah,
it is. And get in touch with that sensitivity. Yeah, none of that it's that old comedian Tommy Cooper. How come you know that? You're 31.
Oh, my dad loves Tommy Cooper, right?
Does he?
Yeah. And my dad's not the biggest laugh, but so I remember specifically my dad watching Tommy Cooper and howling. And so obviously seeing my dad laugh, I'm like, who's this guy? Who's making the great white father laugh?
Yeah.
So yes, Tommy Cooper for me he's the comedian that I just think, wow, he's the guy that managed to get my dad to laugh. And some of this stuff's so silly, isn't it? It's just
like Tim Vine. Tim Vine gags are the Tommy Cooper gags of our days.
Yeah.
That kind of clever stuff about, Velcro, what a ripoff. Stuff like that. What's that? Tommy, that's Tim's, but Tommy was his precursor, his comic antecedent. It's brilliant. So it's so silly and it's so funny, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And just the magic as well in itself, it's just so awful. It's just so bad, but it's just brilliant. But then often documentaries about him, like he could do real magic as well. Like he's quite a serious magician as well, and he did some stuff. But yeah, just never be duplicated. Really, Tommy Cooper. Just if anyone else could pull that off. Yeah. But Nicky, it's been amazing talking to you today. Can't wait to see more Long Lost Family and see any more writings and stuff. I've got about an hour and a half left of the Audible book of you, so I'm looking forward to hearing the end of that. But yeah, thanks for joining me today, and yeah, please stay in touch.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Cheers, Lawrence.
Thank you.